The Ecumenical Hardline. The Ecumenical Hardline is a response to the ecumenical compromises that has been the path the churches have followed to date. Ecumenical compromise is the equivalent of Chamberlains' policy of appeasement. We never negotiate with evil, we do not attempt to reconcile with the devil. There are wolves among us. We attempt no readjustment in our thinking to make their presence more tolerable or their policies seem compatible. This hardline may appear incompatible with the idea of ecumenics. But of course, this is a negotiating ploy of Satan. We are intolerant of his position, and our stand does make reconciliation with his followers impossible. However, ecumenics is the study of how to bring the churches together in faith, not how to reconcile our faith with those of the flesh. This issue highlights a problem with the entire ecumenical process. Ecumenics is not about bringing believers together if it does not simultaneously separate from the world and drive a deeper wedge between those with faith and those of the flesh. Therein lays the problem, because it is easy to say but hard to do if we do not know what divides us. The narrative is that Christians have faith and unbelievers do not, but the subjectivity of this claim is made clear by secularists claiming they have no faith. They may not believe in God, but that is hardly the same thing as not relying on faith in life. Nothing, despite their claim, is known. Everything is believed unless actively doubted, analytical truths being the only exception. It is not that believers believe in God and non-believers do not, but what is the correlate of this? How does this give us something substantial to work with? If all we have is personal attestation, what guarantee do we have that wolves will not lie and enter into the church? How do we even know that a person even understands what it means to be a believer? Perhaps she just likes the social experience and says she is a believer to enjoy the company of believers. How do we build the church ecumenically if the parameters are not visible? Two churches may reconcile their doctrinal differences, but at the members of both churches true believers in the Bible. But then, who among us can say who believes in the Bible and who is corrupting its truths? How many believers even in the same church have the same take on all of the Bible? People never agree on everything. This is why the appeasement ecumenics of the established churches has not progressed far. There is no way we can reconcile doctrine and still retain a doctrine worth retaining. In any case, it is not even doctrine that is the issue. Obviously, doctrine needs to be reconciled to create an ecumenical church, but the inability to reconcile statements of faith has more to do with whose doctrines will be reformed and whose will be retained. One human will be the head of this doctrinal consolidation, and few do not wish it were them. Pastors will make concessions so long as it leaves them with the final say and authority. This is not altogether about ego. If one believes in one's doctrines, then it is hypocritical to permit them to be compromised. The ecumenic hardline is this: your doctrines are not the church, and pastors are not the key component of the church. Ecumenics has nothing to do with doctrine or with whose pastor gets to make the most important decisions. Bringing the church together is as much about separating from the world as it is about forming relationships or larger churches. But the line of fracture has to be made visible. Flesh and faith, east and west, saved and unsaved, good and evil are all ways to denote the division. But if there is a dividing line, the source has to be God and Satan. Between them there is no connection. What is God's is not Satan's. Upon this truth rests the narratives about flesh and spirit and the saved and unsaved. The question now becomes how to identify what belongs to God. We know God created everything physical, so the universe belongs to God. Satan did not create anything, but he corrupted Adam and Eve. He caused them to take what belonged to God. So, there is an action here or event. It created a division, one that was never repaired. If anything, it has become calcified. Adam and Eve tended the garden, but it was not theirs. It was not Satan's either. The fruit supposedly gave them the ability to know right from wrong, which means the ability to judge God. The knowledge put them above God or in a judgment seat beyond God. Eve wanted to be like Satan, to have the hidden knowledge. But what happened? They because as flesh and now could see they were naked and exposed. They were ashamed because now they were aware of their transgression. God wanted to know how they knew they were naked. Because now they were flesh, they were ejected out of the garden. Their knowledge was of the fallen world. They knew right and wrong, but in terms of physical power. Cain, when he was injured emotionally, killed Abel, in the same way modern people talk of hate speech and microaggression. Wealth, for Cain, was in the land. He wanted to accumulate property. But for this one had to control other people. Nimrod became a great ruler over many nations in his thirst for power. Babylon turned power into a more conceptual affair by the creation of law and legal systems. But it comes down to the exercise of power through the ownership of property. We either add value to the things of God or we try and take it for ourselves. This means ownership is the tip of the spear. It is the point at which the division becomes clear. Either God owns the universe or Satan. This may seem a moot issue if one is not Christian. But it is a matter of interpretation. So long as you deny God, you are left with a reality that is free for the taking, and many have laid claim to tracts of it. From adventurers to empire builders to migratory people, humans have found land that they desired and claimed it as their own. Indeed, the process works all the better if you do not believe in God. Criminals and adventurers both see, and having seen, they take as their own. The fact it might have been seen and taken by an earlier person or group hardly matters with either person. All that matters is if one can take and hold it, or if the other group or person has the means to defeat your claim. The point is that this form of ownership is based on the exercise of power and inevitably leads to confrontations. The position of an ecumenicist must be that we own only what we create and that we own nothing created by another, especially when the thing in question was created by God.